Reese joined a distinguished group of guys from your program who have been honored as ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Given the emphasis you place on defense, is it especially gratifying when one of your guys gets that award?
Very much so. One of our managers did a cool edit and said "Welcome to the club," and it was a picture of Reese with the guys behind him. And I was sitting there thinking, like, all right, if those 5 guys were on the court, how good could they be collectively, defensively? And it was fun to think about that. But for sure, it's a tremendous award for Reese to receive. And again, and I hope he would have said it, and I know he does, you know, our defense is a us defense or a we or a team defense. So that's such a part of it. But you know, we've talked about it from day one. I think you saw some of those natural instincts that Reese has, the anticipation, the quick hands, and then, you know, the ability to desire to play that way and have the heart, because that's a hard thing to make yourself. It's not natural, and so I'm glad he's been rewarded, and obviously Kihei was on that first team as well, so it was good.
Tony, you talked about after the UNC game, that second half and kind of the momentum that it gave you guys. What does the momentum look like on a daily basis, though, just kind of that effort that you talked about? Yeah,
I think you have to generate that amongst yourselves. As a staff, we have to bring that, and the players have to commit to that, because our way is one of, you know, tremendous. I think the trademark for us has always been, for Virginia basketball, very passionate and very united on the offensive and defensive end. When that's there and you don't get distracted about any of the other stuff, if you can bring that, again, amongst your staff and your own players, that's the way. And I think that takes, you know, that kind of commitment and focus to do that. So I don't think you get it much more complicated than that, but, you know, bringing that to the practice floor and then, of course, to the game floor, and you build those habits over the course of a year. But I thought, as you said, you know, even in the first half of the Carolina game, but definitely in the second half, and then just carried on it, you're always trying, everybody works hard, but then there's like that complete, you know, unified focus that maybe moves the needle a little more, and that's what you're looking for.
Tony, Coach Brownell, when he was kind of singing the praises of Kihei and everything he's done, mentioned your wherewithal to play him as a freshman, where maybe some people would have brought him along. What was that process like? Because you had that very loaded team, you thought he was a good fit, but the decision to entrust him with that role?
I thought he fit. You know, I mean, that's a staff decision, and then sometimes on the floor things just happen and you see it. I remember that with London Parentes. You know, we had a terrific team, and it just seemed like when he was on the floor with them, he stirred or brought it together. So with Kihei, I thought his ability to put heat on the ball and then just make timely plays, and his quickness and his competitiveness fit so well with, at the time, you know, Kyle and Ty and DeAndre, Jack Momedy, Braxton, that team, all those guys, but especially with them. So, you know, a lot of people in the recruiting process, it's a big thing. Well, am I going to get an opportunity to play? You know, here you don't play freshmen or first years, or is that's a question that's asked. And my response is, if you're good enough, you'll play, or if you are good enough and there's an opportunity, you'll play. Sometimes it's just not the right time, but, you know, we've had some guys, when they're ready and they help, they're going to be on the floor. And again, I think because of how he's wired, and again, the players he played with, he was the right complement, and obviously it played out that way.
Going back to the halftime of that Carolina game, a lot of the players said you were pretty fired up at halftime. What was your message to the team that day? And the second half, was that mostly effort, or was there some strategy thrown in there that helped turn things around?
I can hardly remember. I can't. I just, you know, I felt, you know, not backing down and not taking a back seat. And I think, you know, you make little adjustments and guys play the game, but when a team throws, you know, Carolina's good. They're talented. And they played terrific against us in the first half especially. And sometimes if you're really about pursuing quality, when people are doing tough things and good things against you, but you're doing your job, you can't get discouraged. You just know over the course of the game you gotta win those battles. And I didn't want our guys to let up, and I wanted them to go at it even more with a level of intensity and the things that we just talked about. And then I can't remember strategically if there were some adjustments, but there's, everybody says, well, that's the entry level, or that's the minimum level of passion and competitiveness, and it is. But there's always a little more in there, and it's a focused, I think, unified passion that makes it even better. And so I thought I saw that in the guys in that second half, and I thought they carried it over to so far, and it will be required for today's practice.
Ryan played at, I think, 4 different high schools and a prep school before getting to you guys. Do you think his understanding of how to jump into a new culture helped him play right away for you guys? And where have you seen him grow the most this season?
Yeah, perhaps it was 4 different high schools. I mean, he played at a great Lou High, and then his last, and again the COVID year, and he had an injury, so it was that. But for sure, just understanding who he is, and I think his game will evolve over the years, of course. But when a guy understands, like we just talked about with Kihei, this is what this team needs. This is where I'm at, and they can. And he values that, and we value that. That's a nice combination. And we need Ryan's passion, his heart, his quickness, his mobility on defense, getting offensive rebounds, making some of the hustle plays. And so I think he's really embraced that, and he's gotten more comfortable and better. He hasn't played a whole lot before because of the injuries, because of COVID. And so for him to be in this spot and just kind of understand that, I think that's helped us. So perhaps to go to your question, I should know that if it was 4 high schools. I can't remember, but yeah. Is he a troubled kid or what? No, he's not. He's one of the best we got. That I got to get. I'll square that away after this and figure out what's right. But no, he's again, and I think having a brother that has played, was a high level pitcher in Boston College, and then obviously in the major leagues. When you see guys go through become pros and what it takes. Any sport, and it's a family member, sometimes you see that, and it's just different. And those who've walked that path can say that. Those who haven't, unless they've observed it, no, you have to figure it out. And I think that's helped him, and I think his brother has encouraged and pushed him, and of course all the coaches he had up to that point.
Coach Williford was saying that the assistants who had a scout for a team kind of keep that scout for the ACC tournament, and that's part of the prep. How much in your career do things, maybe barring a major injury, change from that in-season scout to what you're getting ready for in Greensboro, or is it kind of the same?
I think you have to watch, because certainly there's adjustments. There's things we're doing differently than we did when we played some of these teams. There's the general things that this is who they are from the most standpoint, but I think you just have to watch closely and observe, and that's why you don't watch to the last game they play, the last half they play, because sometimes things are either stumbled upon, or there's stuff that, I'm not saying people save things for the end of the year, but you just say, okay, different rotations happen and all that stuff. So I think that's part of it. So I think it can change, but you study it closely.
Coach, if you could talk about the growth of you mentioned Ryan and IMAC, the 2 first years going into Greensboro, and just how they've become more of the rotation, and just how they can contribute moving forward.
No, I think there's times where Ryan wasn't in the rotation. Isaac's always been in the rotation for the most part, but I think they're first years, but just step into it and don't try to go outside of yourself, and just give everything you got, and don't get distracted. It's between the lines. It's not, maybe tournament play gets a little more intense and aggressive, but you don't become something different, and you trust what you've done and how you play. And that's why, again, a clear mind or not being distracted, I think, is the way for these guys. And we try to do a good job of encouraging them and challenging them and tell them, be free, but be ready, and understand who you are. So my hope is that they'll be able to do that, and they've given us very nice lifts in this first year at crucial times.
Yeah, Tony, if you remember back at the beginning of the season, it was a long time ago now, but just the day of, Northern Iowa game getting canceled that day after the tragedy, and then a couple days later you're off to Las Vegas. What did that moment in this community kind of do for this team, and just kind of how was that? I know y'all still wear the warm-ups and you've got the patch on your shirt, but how was that kind of manifested this season for you guys?
Yeah, a day of tremendous sadness, a time, not a day, of tremendous sadness and mourning and perspective that I think it brought that a tragedy like that only can. And so I think, it allowed opportunities for our young men to come together and talk about what really matters, and look at your sport, your life, maybe in a different lens, and understand the pain that so many are going through and how close a lot of those guys were. So, we make so much of it, and this is it's a profession, and it's become business-like in so many ways, but I think sometimes we get it out of whack. I think our society has gotten sports out of whack and many things, and then when something like that happens, you understand, this is about, what I believe in terms of my faith, what I believe in terms of my relationship with my family and my friends, and the gift that you have of being here, of playing this sport, but really each day. And so I think when those things happen, you try to use the pain and the tragedy of that to say, okay, let's try to honor those young men and what happened, and use it in the right way. So I think that all that stuff took place, and it's still there. It's I can't tell you how many times, and I don't need to go on, but it's real, and I think our guys have understood it, and those shirts are real, and I think often of those young men a lot. And of course, and we were, as I said, a layer removed from it, and I still think of course, their families and those football guys and that staff, but they'll honor their legacy for sure.
Tony, included in Saturday's celebration were your managers able to cut the nets down. What has that group meant to you? In particular, Anna, who came here, she grew up a UVA fan. This was kind of her cool moment to do that. For her to have that moment, what did that mean to you?
It was the best. That happened organically in a way. Whatever, we honored Kihei, and I can't remember if he gave me the scissors. I don't know who went up the ladder first, if he did or I did. I can't even remember, but I think, what's that? Oh, you didn't see. What's that? Oh, yeah. I thought you're supposed to know that. I was just kidding. I'm joking. I think I'm just giving him. And by the way, fantasy basketball is not a pro career. Picking those teams. I just want to make sure that's. No, this is my guy. Yeah, 5'11", 6 feet. No, I think, and I'm glad. I think someone should do a story on that, or at least mention it, because Anna, just what she's been to our program in Jackson, and all of our managers. Special. I joked, I don't think she took that net off. I saw her after the game. I think she might have slept with that net on. I think it's just like she wore that net around. But it was, as I was saying, it happened like I think our guys like, oh, this would be cool. And they all went up and they wanted that to happen. And it just happened. And to see Jackson cut it and then Anna get to do it and wave it around. Beautiful, because you guys have heard me talk many times about no one's any better than anyone else in our program. And our managers serve in a way that is behind the scenes, and they do it with a joyful heart, and they don't complain, and they just want to help. And our young men treat them as part of they're no different. It's really a special thing. That'll be one of the things that I'll be, when my day is done, when I look back and say, yeah, the way our young men, how they were. And I told them that yesterday in practice. I said, in the film room, I said, that made a big impact on Anna and Jackson and me. And I said, and I bet you it did on others watching that young lady go up the ladder and cut it down. And that's the right message. And we were talking about perspective and talking about the gift of things. That's the right perspective. So, again, a small thing, but an important thing.
After the game at Chapel Hill last month, you mentioned that Carolina had been a desperate team and had played that way. Whichever team you play Thursday night will be in a similar situation where to get to the NCAAs, they're going to have to win that game. Do you bring up to your players the idea of matching the intensity of the opponent in that situation, or is that just understood?
I think it's understood, but it's it's real, and that's what tournament basketball is. You know, efficiency, that intensity, and playing with that kind of quality, and it's a different dynamic, I guess, than the tournament, the NCAA tournament, unless you play a play-in team. You know, the team will have played a game or two before you, and that's always different. You know, when you step into the arena and all that, so you gotta be ready, and again, get to your game, but definitely understanding that. And again, our league, that's why there's so much parity in it. Forget the records, and obviously it's an older league, and the caliber of the opponent, whether it's, you know, even in Louisville, you look at their record, they're talented, and then of course BC, they took it to us. It might have given us our worst loss this year, I think, and then Carolina's talent and their ability. So it's real.
Coach, you obviously have a lot of guys that contribute a lot to the team. Armand Franklin had a big year. How would you kind of evaluate his regular season?
He really improved. You know, I wish all of our guys, you know, this is me as a coach, and I wish they all, I felt like I wish Armand could have been recognized somehow, some way on one of the all-conference teams. And there's a lot of good players in our league, and I wish the guys that were third team should have been first or second team. And, you know, that's just, I believe that because they were part of winning a share of the conference championship. But, again, you can't get distracted by that stuff. And I told Armand, I said, you really improved this year. You helped us win a championship. And that's the good stuff. So I think you look at last year to this year, his more consistent and just how he worked at it. So I was really proud of him. And again, regular season wise, he'll have something that he'll get to hold on to always. So that part is good, and I think that's what matters to him.
Hey, Tony. Speaking of senior day, Chase Coleman had a nice moment. Obviously, most of his moments come behind the scenes in practice on the green team. And I know you've talked about this before, but what can you say about his contributions and maybe the way they've evolved over the years since he got here?
For sure. You know, we talked about Anna and Jackson, and then, you know, same kind of thing with the guys that either, you know, Chase has been a walk-on. I think one of the years or 2 of the years we gave him a scholarship when it was available. But first, he's going to be a tremendous coach. He wants to coach. He's gifted in that way, and he's a part of our playing/coaching staff. I rely on him in games. I talk to him. What do you see, Chase? How he helps us out, and he's a good player. I mean, he could play somewhere, and he has a year to decide what he wants to do. He'll always be welcome here if he wants to be part of, you know, our playing kind of graduate for sure, or if it's somewhere else, that'll be his decision, and I'll honor whatever he wants to do, but I hope he'll be here, but whatever's best for him. He's going to be a heck of a coach. He's made a huge impact on this team just with his spirit. He has a joyful spirit. He's encouraging. He's competitive. And he has a real sharp mind for the game, and I saw that, and I'm so glad he decided, you know, back 4 years ago, hey, I want to come to UVA. He comes from a basketball family with his brother and his mom and dad, and they're wonderful people. But again, I always say it, when people, you have to make sure young men know how much you want them to be a part of your program. But when it's reciprocal, and when they say, you know what, I really want to be a part of this because I believe in what you're doing and I want to be there, that just usually goes well. And that's been the case with Chase, and couldn't have asked for anything more than he's given. And he's come a long way. I remember he played in a game as a freshman. We were at the, where is it, in Mohegan, the Mohegan Sun Classic. And I put him in the game, and it was late. You know what I'm going to talk about, right, Jeff? We were playing Arizona State, or was it could have been Arizona State in the championship game of that. And he was in at a crucial time, and he got a breakaway. And, all right, you know, he's going down the floor, and Momady's trailing behind. And it could have been UMass. I don't know if it was UMass or Arizona. It was the first game. And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, good, lay it in. And all of a sudden, he comes up and he flips it off the board, trying to throw like an alley-oop to Momedy at it. You know, a fairly important time of the game. And I'm like, Chase, what are you doing? You know, and we laughed at that. So he's come a long way since then in his maturity. I think when he's a coach someday, he's going to be like, I think I know why Coach Bennett wasn't a big fan of that, flipping it off the board for an alley-oop at a pretty important time of the game. But just love Chase and who he is.
All right, Coach, first of all, I think you and Eric should go on a comedy tour real quick. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, we got a lot more, trust me.
I know that. That's good stuff.
Just the surface.
But I got to ask you, this is March Madness. What does this time of the year mean to you personally?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's why you coach. It's why you played. You hope for that opportunity. I remember as a young, coming out of high school and going to decide to play for my father, I was like, first I want to be as good as I can and hopefully have a chance to play professionally someday, but ultimately I want to turn this program around with you and these players and get a chance to play in the tournament. That was a big thing, try to win a conference championship and play in the tournament. And that was out of Green Bay, which was a low mid-major at the time. And so I always remember that. And how can you not be captivated by, the opportunities? And then being at Washington State as a head coach, my first year as a volunteer manager, my father's team went to the Final Four at Wisconsin. And I wasn't even sure I wanted to coach. I really wasn't. And I tasted that, and I said, my goodness, that's, and I didn't realize how hard it was. I thought, well, this is pretty easy, first year, get to be a part of that. And so just the joy of that, as I said, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, that's the old ABC commercial that Jim McKay used to talk about. There's so much to it. And so it's an exciting time, and I never take for granted qualifying for it. Last year we didn't qualify for it. We were messing around with it, but didn't. And I think playing in the NIT was important and valuable, but it's special for these young men. That's Jaden and Armand. They wanted to be a part of trying to win a conference championship and then play in postseason. Of course, they did the NIT, but the NCAA tournament. And then, you try to be as prepared as you can to advance. But, it's that one and done mentality. Whoever thought of it, brilliant idea. Even though it's caused a lot of joy and heartache, it's brilliant, and I hope it never changes. No matter where college sports goes, the NCAA tournament has something that is pretty special.